The NHL draft is the perfect time for teams with a clean slate and to look forward to the future.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Check out eBay Motors. A championship team is all about each player being a perfect fit, and same with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit, ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Hi, Nick.
Hello. How are we doing today, Jeff?
Excited. It's a new era of Flames hockey has been bestowed upon us. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, as well as kind of other organizations. And so we have a fun show planned out for you guys today. So stick around and make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, and of course on YouTube as well. Did you watch the whole thing last night?
Yeah, I watched the entire. I had the Mets on, I had that on, and I had Dynamite on because I can't let thoughts form in my head. So 2 TVs, the iPad, and keeping an eye on it. But yeah, the first round is the bulk. That's the priority, because after that, that's when you start getting into the range of where guys could go really starts to open up once you get past about 20. That's where it really starts to depend on what you're prioritizing, which scouting system, which scouting, what's the word I'm looking for? Rankings, there we go. Which scouting rankings you prefer. So there are draft experts. There are people whose entire job is draft content. Those are the people you want to be paying attention to, because that's who I'm paying attention to. I do NHL stuff. I don't have time to watch the WHL, the QMJHL, the OHL, the Russian League, the Swedish League. I do not have the. I stay up a lot. I only get there's not enough hours in the day.
You don't have enough.
That's also true.
But
yeah.
I mean, I think it's great that there's people who are so specialized in this.
Yes.
Without them, I don't think we would be able to have these kind of conversations.
Yeah.
And definitely make sure to check out Locked On NHL Prospects, because they have been doing amazing work over there and just kicking butt with all this draft content and coverage. So obviously last night was the best night of these 18-year-old, 19-year-olds' lives, 17-year-olds even.
Yeah.
And what does that say? What does that say about their future? Or I guess their present, because they're children.
Yeah, these are literally children, and we lose sight of that. And a lot of these guys are going to go in the incubator. We hear these names, and we're not going to see them in the NHL for at least 2 to 3 seasons, at least. Some of these guys, it might be longer than that. I mean, if you go by what the Coyotes did, they might never have any of these guys come over, all of the guys they drafted who are playing in professional leagues over in Europe and in Russia. So it's the draft is conceptually, that's your foundation, that's your building block. You start out with 7 picks. What you choose to do with them, whether you trade them, whether you use them, every organization values draft picks differently, but that's your foundation. Because the way you got to think about it is you have X number of contracts you're allowed to have as an organization. In the NHL, it's 50. In baseball, it's 40. In football, it's 53 and then a 10-man practice squad. In the NBA, it's 12 active players and then 3 guys who don't dress. So every league, the value of draft picks is differently. In the NHL, because you have to field, an entire second division team in the AHL, unless you're one of the teams that doesn't have a concrete affiliate. But for the most part, everybody has an affiliate team. You have 7 picks. That's, 1/7-ish, 7 out of 50 isn't exactly a 7th, but close enough. 1/7 of your organization, you're getting an opportunity to inject a new 7th of your team in every single year as your starting point. Now, those guys, some of them might be going to college. Some of them might be playing in a men's professional league over in Europe or in Russia. Russia. Some of those guys might need another season or two in whatever junior league they're in, whether it's the OHL, the QMJHL, the Western Hockey League, whatever league you're in, you might need more time. Very few guys in the NHL go right to the league, and even fewer go right to the league and hit right away, which is really where the starting point of this conversation is for me. The idea that your landing spot matters almost as much as how talented you are.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely seen a few draft picks that thought, they were going to hit. And now they are, I don't even think they're still in the NHL or.
Are we doing Jacob Zaboral discourse today, Jess?
I was actually thinking Zach Senyshyn, another famous first rounder in the 2015 draft. But it doesn't matter. It does matter, I guess. You're going wherever you go. You might be off the board and Don Sweeney's going to call you. Yeah, I want you. And you're going.
It's complicated. It's really tricky. You can kind of try and play the game, which is reportedly what Michkov, the guy the Flyers drafted, did, where he was very abrasive with the teams he very clearly didn't want to go to, so they wouldn't draft him, so he could kind of get somewhere where he wanted to, which I would honestly, in all honesty, recommend. You're already capped out as much as you can earn, so whoever drafts you is going to pay you the same amount. So by all means, try and leverage your way to somewhere you actually want to be. And he's a little bit different because he has a professional contract to play out over in Russia over the next couple of years, but we see this all the time. To get to this point, you are special. To just get drafted alone, you are an extremely special, rare talent. We're talking about the upper 1-2% of everybody on the entire planet who plays professional hockey between the ages of 16 and 18. We're talking about the best of the best in that age bracket. So to just get to that point is special. And then you have attrition. You have the cream rising to the top. I went and looked it up today because I was curious. 49% of players who get drafted play one NHL game. So less than half of the players who ever get drafted play one game in the NHL level. So there were 7 rounds, 32 picks. We're talking about 220-something, 230-something draft picks over the course of 2 days. Half of those guys will not play more than half of those guys will not play in the league, statistically speaking. Maybe it's a weird year where it's 51, 52%, whatever. For the most part, most of the guys who got drafted over the course of the last day and a half, they will not play in the NHL, but they'll play in the AHL. They'll play in European professional leagues. They'll coach hockey somewhere and pass on the institutional knowledge. That's something I found very interesting in reading about the downsizing of minor league baseball in the United States, where entire levels of minor league baseball were wiped out. And I was reading something in, I forget what publication it was, about the idea that you're losing a lot of people who are going to coach baseball at that next division, at whether it's the little league level, the high school level, the junior college level. You're just losing institutional knowledge because you're downsizing. So there is something to the idea of paying it forward when you draft these guys, of keeping that institutional knowledge that these guys have gathered over their lives that they can pass to other people. And it's so early. The draft ended a couple hours ago, and unless you're the Blackhawks who got one of the guys, I could say I feel pretty good about the Blue Jackets getting Adam Fantilli. I like Leo Carlson, who the Ducks took. But other than those 3 guys and maybe Michkov, I do not feel confident in saying I can predict how any of these guys are going to play out. The really, really good ones, generally speaking, you got a good idea. I've known about Connor Bedard since he was 14, 15 years old. That's generally the sign that, this is going to be one of those guys. And those are the guys who usually stick right away. But for the most part, this is all random. Nobody knows anything too authoritatively, least alone the teams that are taking these guys. They are going to get these guys with professional everything for the first time in their lives, and their lives are going to change dramatically. I mean, you saw on all the graphics, 5'11", 165 pounds. These boys need strength. They need strength and conditioning and nutrition. They need to put mass on. I forget what podcast it was on, but I remember Charlie McAvoy, I want to say his second season in the league, him going, "Yeah, I didn't know how to cook. I was eating 1,200 calories a day when I first got to the NHL." And they were like, "You're losing what?" They were like, "You're losing weight. You need to put on more mass." And then they started giving him 3 meals a day, where he would go to morning skate. He would get the other 2 meals for the rest of the day in Tupperware and bring them home so he could start putting on mass. These are children. They need to know.
And, back to Connor Bedard, there's only so many people what is it, 7 players who've been granted exceptional status.
Yeah, in the OHL, yeah.
In the OHL, and that in itself is incredible. Like to be part of that small group, but then to also be part of the larger picture of the draft is also like, I don't know, I think that's pretty neat. But yeah, I remember reading a story that said Connor Bedard has never had McDonald's. He's probably gonna have McDonald's.
He sounds like JD McCoy. He sounds like JD McCoy from Friday Night Lights, where his dad wouldn't let him eat fried foods.
Oh my God, sounds like a miserable life. But you're good at sports, so maybe there is some sort of payoff there. But coming up next, we are going to talk about the philosophy and ideas going into the draft, and we are going to take a quick break here while I tell you about our next partner. Our next partner is AG1, the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health. I drink it literally every day, have it in my little AG1 bottle that they sent me, and it's great because it's good for on the go, and I didn't want to keep taking 2 million vitamins in the morning, so just have them all packed into my AG1. And with AG1, you are building a habit. It takes, I think it's 3 weeks to build a habit, and starting your day off with a simple micro habit of drinking AG1, you are getting macro benefits, and it helps everybody just take better care of themselves. You know, you want to have that clarity, you want to feel better, you want to be the best version of yourself. And if a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/lockedon. drinkag1.com/NHL network. That's drinkag1.com/NHL network to check it out. And thank you everyone for hanging out with us today on Locked On Flames. We're cruising 5 episodes a week. We're here for you every day. You don't want thoughts going in your brain? We're here. We're here to be the noise.
Very much so. Yeah, I was a draft guy. Generally speaking, when I know my team is going to be very bad, that is when I will get invested in the draft. Like all the years of the New York Football Giants being atrocious. Why do you think I was watching 15 hours of college football every weekend? Because I need to know who we're going to get. When the Rangers spent 3 seasons being atrocious, I was very up on college hockey, junior hockey. So the Flames this year, I was like, I don't need to worry about that. Well, they're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to pick 22nd overall. I don't really need to be worried about it. And that's, it played out how it did. There's no changing what already happened. But I think what's interesting is what makes the draft unique, at least to me, and why I enjoy it as a concept is it's one of the few honest times you get to understand what your organization values, cares about, and what it's actually thinking. Because free agency and trades are a little bit more tricky because you're dependent on other factors. These kids don't have a choice. You take them, you have their rights for 3 years, and you can trade them, whatever, but they don't have a choice. You get we want size, we want speed, we want shooting talent, whatever you seem to value. Mm-hmm. That's really where I like the draft because it gives me an insight. Or if you're a team like Tampa, you're a team like Vegas who just, willy-nilly with your draft picks, like we can find a third line right wing. I don't need this 4th round pick. That's where you really start to get an understanding. Like think about a couple of years ago when the Lightning traded the 2 1st round picks for Brandon Hagel and to get 2 2nd round picks back with Brandon Hagel. That tells me, the Lightning think those 2nd round picks at the top of the 2nd round are pretty close in value to the bottom of the 1st round. So that type of evaluation, what teams prioritize and what they think of things, it's hard to get that because these GMs, they don't like telling you anything.
No, you're not getting anything out of them. Maybe if you're Frank Saravelli with his plate of Nashville hot chicken, maybe you can bribe some information out of you. But I think the draft is just such like an interesting concept in itself. Like this 16 or 17, 18, 19-year-old.
The boy auction, as Twitter likes to call it.
Is, has lived in like the sticks of Canada and is now uprooted to a giant city that he may play in.
And the crazy part, you get a 5-figure direct deposit every 2 weeks as this 18-year-old who's never had real money and has no adult supervision. Like, conceptually, I feel like we should be doing a little bit better.
I feel like we should be helping them.
Yes,
like that's such a huge step. Like, you talk about Charlie McAvoy not knowing how to cook. Do you know how to manage money? Do you know? I don't know how to manage money. I'm sure an 18-year-old boy that is just handed $80,000 is like, I can buy anything.
Yeah.
And that's probably what they do.
You can tell. Because very quickly they go from coming in with a very generic Weekender bag to a Louis Vuitton Weekender bag, and that's when they realized, oh, I can get a credit card. That is what the jump in mindset is. Alexis Lafreniere went from a regular duffel bag to a Louis Vuitton duffel bag. It's like, oh yeah, he got a line of credit. It's okay now.
Yeah, and I get it. It is exciting, and you should reward your hard work. I've certainly treated myself for smaller feats than being drafted into the NHL, but it's a huge culture shock. And I wonder what organizations do to acclimate these guys and to kind of get them. I mean, I'm sure they're not homesick as like kids at a sleepover would be, because they've been on the road with their like junior teams and whatnot, but I wonder what kind of resources are there for that.
It depends on the organization. And this is something we've talked about a lot is, how does your organization handle the things they can spend however much money that you want on them? Like, I know some teams do billet families in the NHL where they have people they stash these guys with in the suburbs away from the city. So they're kind of out of the spotlight and they can't get into too much trouble. And they have adult supervision, where some organizations, if you're more in a suburban area, you can just, tell the kid, hey, rent an apartment, rent a house, whatever you need, we can give it to you. But there are more proactive ways of setting these guys up for success that I think organizations probably should be looking into.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even it's probably dumb, but I feel like as players kind of become more accessible through social media, they kind of have to be proactive, because people find out what hotels these guys are staying at and will wait outside. Imagine if they find out, what luxury condo, and you have to be smart. Who's doing media literacy with them? Who's telling them not to post their location until after they leave? Who?
I'm just giggling. I'm just giggling to myself thinking about a certain luxury designer handbag, and we're talking about social media. And you got where I'm going here.
There is a Gucci store in Chicago, in downtown Chicago, actually. So probably why I wasn't on his no trade list, but you just,
I need to get off the internet so bad. My brain is so rotted. I used to be smart, and we're talking about this. God.
Yep, we're talking about Taylor Hall and Timo Meyer, who used to be on Snapchat. I think he's still on Snapchat.
Yes, he is.
Allegedly. Yes, he is. Good for these
guys.
So
is Lindy Ruff. So is Lindy Ruff.
What?
You don't remember that story from like December where Jack Hughes was like, yeah, we talked to Coach Ruff on Snapchat, and then somebody from NHL.com asked Lindy Ruff, and he's like, well, these kids don't answer the phone anymore, so I want to make sure they're okay. So I'll Snapchat them to be like, what are you doing right now? Getting the you up Snapchat from Lindy Ruff, that's a little tough.
Yeah, like, what are you doing? I am sitting in my luxury condo with whatever girl is in town. Like, what do you think? But yeah. It's so exciting for these guys, I think, obviously, to make this jump and to, hopefully make a name for themselves and become like, you're not everyone's destined to be the next Connor McDavid, next Sidney Crosby or Alex Ovechkin, but to just play in the NHL consistently. I think it's exciting. I think, there is a lot to look forward to for fans. And, obviously, if with a higher draft pick, you're going to be more likely to
invested.
Yeah, you're going more than likely going to get a guy that's going to make the NHL, but you never know. Like, you think about Dustin Wolf, who was like a 6th-round pick.
7th.
Last round. And Brad Treliving found diamond in the rough. So you never know what you're going to get. And coming up next, we are going to talk about this year's Calgary Flames picks and just who they are. And thanks, everyone, for hanging out with us today on Locked On Flames. You can follow us on Twitter at Jess Belmosto and at Nick Zeraris, because we are terminally online, and that is what our listeners should be, so you can get all these references and not just 3 people that we know being in on them. So I was not able to really get up to date with watch the draft or draft picks come in real time. What do you take away from today?
Today, the second day of the draft is always harder because even the draft experts on NHL Network start to tap out. Like, even they run out of things to say. Oh, he's tall. Oh, he's got a great motor. He's competitive. Look at how tall he is. Look how big he is. Oh, his dad played in this league. His uncle played in this league. And very quickly you run out of things to talk about. And it's why it's so funny that we do this.
Yeah. I mean, if there's one league that is going to dig into your family tree, it is the NHL, because there's days like this where we have to go through the whole lineage and see what your pedigree is. And there were some guys drafted this year that had professional hockey player dads that were professional hockey players and things like that. That's always exciting because, you get to continue the family legacy. But if you're like a Connor Bedard, you're the first in your family. So how about those Flames picks?
So I read a few different takeaways about, I want to make sure I say it right, Hanzek. Yeah, okay. From everything I've read, and I agree with this, the Flames took what I would consider to be a safe guy in the first round. That he's more than likely gonna make the league. He'll be a useful player. But there were guys with higher upside, higher ceiling still available on the board. I wanted them to take Perreault. I tweeted it. I tweeted it right when the Flames were walking up to the stage. He's somebody with a little bit more of an upside, and he ended up on the Rangers, which great, but the Rangers already have enough wingers who can't skate well, so it's complicated, but at the very least, I understand it. He's big. He'll grow a little bit more. He's gonna more than likely make the league. He's still probably 2 years away, but the Flames are going to be a very different team 2 years from now, so they can afford to wait on guys, which is something that I think you saw some teams being a little bit more okay with taking guys who were a couple of years away as part of a conscientious strategy to be like, hey, we know we're not going to be that good the next year or two. Let's not get guys who are going to have to get thrown into this environment right away. Let's take guys who are going to college or playing overseas and let them stay in the incubator a little bit. Yeah. And then we can bring them over when they're a little more mature and they're a little bit more ready to be a professional. Because, like we were talking about, 18 years old, you're still pretty stupid.
Yeah, can confirm. I think, too, you can't just call a guy a bust because he isn't making the NHL right out of his draft year. Or say he does play in, the WHL or whatever, and he doesn't have like a super strong season. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what you're going to get for the rest of his life. There's a lot of just hope. You have to be hopeful. You have to look at this and think, okay, how can this guy benefit my team in, the 1 or 2 seasons or even 3 seasons it may take for him to make that jump. And I think the Flames are in a position where, like you said, they can wait. They aren't in a rush. It wasn't it's clear they want to get younger, so they're going to, I feel like, truly invest in these draft picks and the boy auction.
Yeah, and you should. Realistically, that is how you start to turn over your roster and get younger. Like I was saying in the open, you get 7 picks every year, you can trade them, whatever. But if you're in a position like the Flames, you want as many as you get because most draft classes, you're lucky if you get 2 out of your 7 guys to the league. If you get 2 out of 7 to the league, and they play more than 100 games, that's a great draft. And I know that probably sounds bad, but like we were saying, there are so many people who get drafted. Less than half, 49% of drafted players play 1 game. You get 100 NHL games out of a 4th-round pick. That's a steal. It doesn't even matter how good they are. If they play 100 games as a 4th-round pick, that is great value and something that not a lot of teams get. It's why you see certain teams that are consistently good always nail those middle and late rounds where they find guys with defects. You think about Braden Point going later in the draft because he was small and not a great skater. The Lightning saw everything else and said, we can teach you to be a better skater, and it doesn't matter that you're short. You're as good as you are. We'll take care of you. Nikita Kucherov, you're going to be in Russia for 3 years? Okay, we can wait for you to come over. You see it consistently where teams that have a sound strategy, especially in the later rounds, it's where they get great value. I mean, as much as I complain about the Rangers, Henrik Lundqvist was a 7th-round pick. Shesterkin's a 4th-round pick. Jesper Fast was a 5th-round pick. You know, if you can consistently hit on those European pros that take a little while to come over, and if you're good at one thing in the draft, that's fine. If you're really good at getting the college guys, if you're really good at drafting Russians, Europeans, whatever, but you got to have something you're good at identifying in the draft. You got to have a specialization, and that's really the thing. Like, what skill sets are you prioritizing and what do you value? And you were saying before, well, yeah, the Flames can afford to wait. That's why I don't think drafting for need is ever a good idea, because these kids aren't ready to fill a need as fast as you need them. Because if you're drafting for need right now, because like let's say you need a right wing, if you're picking anything past 5, it's probably unrealistic to expect somebody you take to go right in. After that, you know, even if you draft a guy, your team's going to be very different 2 years from now. That's the thing people miss in the draft when you're drafting for need. Oh, why'd we draft this? We have a need for this. Well, you're not drafting for right now. You're drafting for the team next year or the year after.
And that's the Flame specialty is drafting Americans that don't want to stay. But
that's not just the Flames. That's every team.
Everyone. But
that's all of the Canadian markets. Look at DeBrincat.
Yeah. He wants to go somewhere that's not Canada, but I'm interested to see, you know, how things progress from here for the Flames and the picks, because I expected Hanifin to be traded for one of these or maybe not the pick, 1st-round pick, but like maybe a 2nd. I don't know, to package him up and go, or get additional picks. We got nothing. Craig Conroy, he cooked.
We're all waiting. There were no trades in the 1st round for the first time in 16 years. Where's the action? So you're telling me everybody's going to get the free agency stuff taken care of the first 4 hours of Saturday, and then everybody's going to the cottage for the rest of the summer? Because if the trades weren't done today, I mean, like I was saying a few weeks ago, yeah, sure, maybe Lindholm they trade in like September, like the Senators did with Carlson, or into the season like Buffalo did with Eichel. But like, don't you want to get this over with? Don't you want to know what you're looking at for next season? The more ambiguity you have, the more unlikely you're going to have a successful season.
Yeah, and we get it. The hard cap is making life incredibly difficult, and this UFA.
But can I say something about that real quick?
Yes.
You do not get to complain about the hard cap because you knew when you signed these guys over the last 2 years that the cap wasn't going up. You knew that you were in an environment where it was going up $1 million at the most. The players owed over $1 billion in escrow after that 2021 56-game season. Over $1 billion. The NHL does not make enough money to pay that off in a season or two. I don't feel bad I hate when people say, well, if the cap had went up, it wouldn't be a bad contract. You knew what it was going to be. Anything pre-2020, okay, that's different. You didn't know the pandemic was coming. But you signed an extension in 2020, 2021, or last year. You signed a free agent. You traded for a guy, gave him an extension. You do not get to say, well, if the cap was going to go up. You knew the environment you were operating in. Saying that is a cop-out and taking away responsibility. These are professional general managers. They're supposed to know how to navigate the salary cap.
But when have any general managers in this league taken accountability for their own actions?
Bro, the Rangers general manager didn't even talk to the media at any point in the last 2 days. These people don't care. Like, it's the draft. You're not going to get any hard questions. Go up there and be like, we drafted this kid because X, Y, and Z. We think he's going to be great. We're so excited he's joining our family. We're so excited to see what he can do. This is the easiest press conference you do is at the draft.
Right. It's not rocket scientists, but yet, they'd rather be wherever they are, at their villa, on their yacht, somewhere that's not where they probably should be, but it's fine. Who needs to hear general managers just spit the same thing 32 times? But that will do it for today. And I think that, you just got to keep looking at the bigger picture. Yes.
Oh, yeah. That's all we got is the bigger picture right now.
Yeah. There's, like you said, there's too much ambiguity.
And that's a hard word. I had to think in my head how to say it before when I dropped it, because I almost said ambiguous, and I was like, wait, that's not the right form.
But there's just so much that we don't know right now. And even when free agency opens the day after tomorrow, we don't know. Because, once again, the Flames have $3.
If you see me posting a YouTube short from a backyard at a barbecue over the weekend because they finally traded Hannafin or Lindholm, mind your business. I'm doing content where I can.
Yeah, seriously. Well, I'll be home, so I mean, you might get some like cornhole action or something in there, but
that would actually be kind of funny.
Right? I'll think of something because the Flames will probably just make my weekend fun. But thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us today on Locked On Flames. We are here for you Monday through Friday, your team every day. Make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you get your podcasts and, of course, on YouTube. Love hearing from you in the comment section. And make sure you rate the show and leave us a review. And we send you our parasocial love.
Yes.
Nick? Any parting words?
Everyone have a good weekend. I'll talk to you guys next week.
Be safe.